the problem with having so many same-ish assault rifles is the fact that eventually some of them will be getting lost in the crowd. And it's just such a crying shame to see a fantastic weapon such as the Quartakk mostly forgotten. Now there's still a few fans of the Quartakk, but now we're gonna be getting a whole lot more because we got a brand new version, the Kuva Quartakk, which improves on the original in almost every single way. As always, my name is Leyzar, and today I got a couple of builds lined up for you. First of all, we're going to be talking about something cheap, something affordable, something mostly anybody can build, but of course we also have the classic endgame setup with a Riven. Now that said, most of my build guides take a new player-friendly approach. I like to take my time and explain a lot of the aspects that veteran players should already be accustomed to. I do this because there's a lot of info here, and no matter who watches this guide, I want them to understand how the weapon functions and how it should be built. So in case you're a veteran and you don't have time for all of this, then you can either skip ahead or have a bit of patience. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Kuva Quartakk. Let's begin by checking out how the weapon handles without any mods equipped, and for that, just a couple of free shots. Now the Kuva Quartakk is pretty similar to the regular Quartakk in the sense that if you aim and shoot, you're gonna be consuming 4 ammo per shot. Now you got 4 barrels on this gun and each of them will discharge simultaneously. You might think this one works like a shotgun, but it will not divide the status chance because this is a burst trigger, so bear that one in mind. Again, the status chance does not get divided among the bullets. All well and good, up until this point it's exactly the same as the regular Quartakk, but this one can be fired in automatic mode. All you gotta do is not aim down sights and fire. So just simply fire without aiming, like so. Then you can aim down sights and you can continue firing. Now of course this is extremely similar to the Quad's secondary weapon. Basically it works the exact same way. Now you can go auto and you can also go burst shot by shot action with a weapon. And that's pretty much it in terms of functionality. Some very interesting changes to the weapon, but better yet, let's have a look at the stat differences between the Kuva Quartakk and the regular Quartakk. The accuracy remains the same at 90.9 versus 90.9. Now keep in mind to ignore this column right here. These are the stats for the automatic fire mode, which do not exist on the normal Quartakk. The critical chance is 19% versus 31%, a massive buff with the same critical multiplier of 2.3x, and the 2.3x critical multi is above average, so that's definitely awesome. Fire rate of 6.33, the same. The magazine saw a minor increase from 84 to 88. Now keeping in mind that in burst you're using 4 ammo per shot, your effective magazine capacity is 22. So there you go. After 22 shots you're gonna have to reload, noise alarming of course, and punch through remains the same at 0.5 meters in burst mode. 0.5 meters might not seem like a lot, but it's still useful to go through the Grenier shield, dude, so bear that one in mind. When it comes to the reload, it also saw a small buff from 1.9 down to 1.7, so slightly faster reload. The status chance remains at 27% for the burst fire mode, but in automatic fire mode it got 33%. So basically this is what happened. They treated this one the same way they treated the T-Baron Prime. In automatic fire mode you get more status but less crit, and in semi mode you get more crit but less status. When it comes to the damage, you got 18.1, 14.2, 16.7 versus 20, 15.7 and 18.4. Yes, we got a very good increase on the base damage as well, especially considering that we are comparing the standard version of the Kuva Quartakk to the Quartakk. That means that this does not take into account the weapon elemental damage bonus that you're going to be getting based on your progenitor and your luck as well. So we're getting damage on top of all this. Now to be a bit more specific, this one has 29.4 extra toxin damage, and the amount of extra elemental damage you're going to be having on each of your Kuva weapons will depend on 2 major factors. 1. What kind of progenitor did you choose? That's the guy who took out the Kuva Larvling. For example, if you want to go for toxin on the Kuva Quartakk, which is a pretty good idea, especially for gas, pure gas or toxin builds, then you can go with something like Sarin or Sarin Prime. If you prefer electricity because maybe you think it's a bit more flexible, you can go for Volt or Valkyr, for example. If you want to go for a heat progenitor, and I do recommend you take heat into account because the new heat proc is a lot more powerful than the old one, and it also removes some of the armor for the duration of the heat proc, consider going with Ember as a progenitor. So you can control what element you're going to be getting on your Kuva weapon, but the RNG part unfortunately says that you can roll between 25 and 60% bonus elemental on that weapon. Now there are some aberrations, but normally you should only be able to roll between 25 and 60%. And that's totally RNG. From my humble point of view, if you do manage to get a weapon with at least 50% of the element you want it on, just leave it alone and forget about it. If you go under 50, not exactly ideal, especially not for weapons which have high amounts of base damage. Not necessarily this one, but for example, take into account the brand new rifle that we got, the Czech or whatever it's called. One more thing to keep in mind, all of these Kuva weapons can go to mod capacity 80 out of 80, which is absolutely freaking nuts. It works basically like the Paracesis, so if you plug in 5 Forma into this one, you're gonna be able to go to that mod capacity of 80 out of 80, of course with the Arcane catalyst plugged in. You get this one from Nightwave, or you can get it from the Daily Sortie. Actually, a blueprint from the Daily Sortie, then you need to craft it. Sometimes appears on alerts as well, and you can also pay 20 plat to have one installed. Honestly, the Kuva Quartakk doesn't really need any Forma. Okay, you can just straight build this weapon up just by leveling it to 30 and then plugging in the catalyst, and it will be enough for a standard build. But if you want to suck up all the mastery points that you can out of any Kuva weapons, you're gonna have to format them 5 times. Which is basically what I did. Again, you don't need to format this weapon at all, and you don't even need to unlock the weapon Excellus mod slot, so bear that one in mind. And without further ado, let's jump into a standard build. And we got a whole bunch of damage restoration and heavy caliber. Look at the accuracy penalty on auto, 18.3 with heavy caliber on. It's not gonna be fantastic for those multi-shot bullets, but when it comes to burst, you got 24.6, which should be just fine, and I'm gonna show you guys just a tad later. What else we got? We got multi-shot with split chamber, and that's pretty much it. Critical chance, critical damage combo between point strike and vital sense, and we also got 2 elementals, 2 60/60s on the weapon, high voltage and malignant force. Now I don't need both of them to form corrosive because I already got toxin on the weapon, so I can remove malignant force. But I want to make a whole lot more corrosive on the weapon because I always keep in mind the IPS rules in Warframe. Impact, puncture, and slash have a 4 times greater chance at applying a status effect over elemental types such as corrosive. So if I was to take out Malignant Force and put on something else, because you do have a lot of good options, may I introduce some fire rate for you guys? Fire rate is fantastic in Warframe. You can go with Shred. The punch through is useful, but the problem I have with punch through, it's not useful in every single case scenario, so bear that one in mind. You can go with Prime Shred. If you have this one, just slap it in and forget about it. But here's one of my favorites. Actually, this is my favorite fire rate mod. File acceleration, 90% at the cost of 15% of that damage. Now, this is a corrupted mod. If you guys still don't know how to farm corrupted mods, link the cards right now. Or you can buy them from the trade chat if you can't be arsed. But Vault runs are actually kind of fun. Minus 15% damage, that might seem a little bit ominous. I don't want to give up 15% of that damage, it's huge, but in fact, it only really takes away 15% away from your heavy caliber or your serration. So think about your serration just giving you 150 instead of 165. So it's not going to take away 15% of your total damage, like everything that comes out of the chamber. So don't worry about it. It's not that big of a sacrifice. Again, you do have a couple of options. When it comes to the weapon Excellus mod slot, my friends, I like to use stabilizer most of the time on these weapons. I'm not the best at aiming, so the weapon not going haywire on the screen does really matter to me, and the weapon's recoil and fire rate do line up quite nicely, so stabilizer is definitely a good option. You can go with Vigilante supplies. Now this one will get you 5% extra chance to enhance critical hits from primary weapons. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal. It's really not, but you can go for something like this. As you can see, I have all 4. I got 4 of the 5%, which is why it says 20% chance to enhance critical hits. That is because you can go to your Sentinel, and here you can equip a Sentinel and a weapon to further increase that bonus. Even if the Sentinel dies, my friends, you're still gonna be getting that bonus. It's not a huge DPS increase, but it's a little bit of extra something. So, there you go. Initially, we're gonna be testing the weapon out like this. Now, Corrupted Heavy Goons level 120, and of course I'm gonna be doing one column with semi-automatic and the other column with automatic. So let's go semi, 1 shot in my target, take a look at that. 2 shots, 3 shots, more than enough to annihilate the target. Now my final mod in this build was Hunter Munitions because honestly, I really should use it. I'm not a fan of this mod, never was, but it's extremely powerful. Take a look at the bleeds on the target. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 bleeds of 2500 plus. Now, if you guys prefer viral builds to corrosive builds, and they are very powerful and they will perform very well in most case scenarios, you can simply drop the electricity mod, which is also a little bit on the expensive side if you don't want to farm it, and you can just replace it with the cold 60-60 mod, which will make the viral elemental combo on the weapon. In that case, for me, at the very least, I'm gonna have a huge amount of viral on this weapon, which is not what you want from viral. What you want from viral is to have something like just to be present, because to get the most out of viral, you don't really need more than 1 or 2 procs on your target. It reduces the maximum health of your target to 50% for the duration of the viral effect. Just like the brand new heat proc now reduces the enemy's armor to 50% for the duration of the heat proc, and the damage stacks on top of its proc. The heat proc stacks damage on top of itself. So there you go. It's not really important for the damage part when it comes to the heat proc, it's more important about the armor stripping. Oh, I didn't go automatic. Sorry, totally forgot. Got lost in explanations. Now, this is a critical weapon, and when it comes to critical weapons, it's important to go for headshots above everything else. Link in the cards right now for a full tutorial on critical chance, critical multipliers, and how they apply in Warframe. Now, I'm fully aware that while walking with Volt around, I get an extra bit of damage, but guys, it really doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't. Okay, so I start off like this, automatic, then I'm gonna zoom into a target set, and you will see how the weapon performs. That is definitely not bad, if you ask me. Again, I could stop firing and let the bleeds finish it off, but I'm counting on the fact that you guys are not gonna fire twice, then let the bleeds finish off the target. Of course, the weapon seems a whole lot more weak when it comes to automatic, because again, you deal a whole lot more damage in burst mode simply because you got much better critical stats. And that's how I recommend you use the weapon. But again, automatic is definitely there if you prefer a more automatic weapon. If you choose to go for automatic, maybe get rid of heavy caliber. You can replace it with more multi-shot, you can replace it with a bit of fire rate. Definitely, if you like automatic, go for fire rate with something like Shred, Prime Shred, or Vigilante armaments. Via acceleration, sorry. Now what we got here will do fantastically well versus heavily armored targets, especially ferrite armor units such as corrupted heavy goons, which is why I say it's always important to know exactly where you're going and who you're shooting and adapt your build accordingly. Unless we're talking about Bane mods. I cannot freaking stand Bane mods. That said, let's say you would want to adjust this build a little bit to make it a bit more cheaper, and let's make it a bit more versatile as well, a bit more all-purpose. So we're going to be turning to viral and slash exclusively. First off, we're going to be getting rid of heavy caliber. Now, don't get me wrong, heavy caliber, it's a fantastic mod. You should have one in your arsenal. The problem with it is that it takes a whole lot of endo, the same amount as serration, and it also has quite the negative on it. So it's not 100% mandatory. High voltage, currently on the PC trade chat, it's about 50 to 60 plat. To be honest, that's not a whole lot of plat, and you can also farm it from the mission Nilgar on the planet Eris, find all the free secret caches, then upon extraction, you got a 5% chance at this one or Shell Shock. And you're gonna be needing both of them eventually, but if you see Battle Bringham, just grab a copy of each so you spare yourself the hassle. If you wanna try to make a little bit of plat, you can grab multiple copies of the electricity mods from Battle. Prioritize Jolt and Voltaic Strike for plat making, because those can only be obtained from Battle. At least at the current time, that is. For a more all-purpose build, I'm gonna be turning to Slash and Viral exclusively. So I'm gonna be keeping my Malignant Force. You get it from Corrupted Vor in the Void, super cheap on the trade chat PC, 10 plat maximum. And we're gonna be going for Cold. Not gonna use the 60-60 mod, because if I increase my status chance right now, what do I win? More procs, right? Yeah, but what am I proccing? I no longer need 1,000 corrosive procs. In order for corrosive to be good, it needs a whole lot of procs, okay? Just to keep stripping away that armor. Viral, 1 proc is good enough. 1 well-timed proc will be good enough. Okay, but what about the IPS? Well, the problem with the IPS on this weapon is the fact that impact is highest by quite a considerable amount. Then you got slash and then puncture. So essentially, I'm gonna be getting a whole lot of impact procs, some slash procs, and some puncture procs. It's not worth going for the 60-60 mod in this case, unless you got a Riven with minus impact. You might say that, listen, I'm gonna go for the 60-60 cold mod, and herpa derpa, I'm gonna go with Fang Fusillade. I'm gonna increase my slash number 1, right? Well, I get the logic behind that one, but unfortunately, these plus IPS mods currently in Warframe are really not ideal. What do they do anyway? They add the tiniest bit of damage to your weapon, and the only real thing they do is increase the chance of that specific IPS to proc. That's really the only thing they do. Again, tiny bit of damage and the chance for it to proc. It's simply not worth unless you have no other option and you really want to proc slash off the weapon's IPS. Again, I recommend against this. Which is why what we're going to be doing is going for cryo rounds, the 90% cold mod. Of course, if you got prime cryo rounds, but this is a cheap build, yeah, so let's stay on the cheap side. And the last mod, something cheap, something affordable, Vigilante Armaments. Nice and easy. We're going to be testing the weapon out like this. Now, most of the slashes, like 85% to 90% of them, are going to be coming from Hunter Munitions, and primarily I would recommend you use it as a burst weapon. One shot on the target. It did that well simply because I ran all the way here and it had the extra volt damage, so have a look at this. One shot on the target, this is what you can expect. 2 to 3 shots maximum to finish up a level 120 corrupted heavy goon. My friends, this is more than respectable for a weapon that doesn't have a single expensive mod. I'm sorry, nothing there is expensive. Nothing at all. I specifically tried to make it as cheap as I possibly could. Take a look at those values. Beautiful. Absolutely freaking beautiful. If you want to give up on the Weapon Excellence mod slot, forget about it, okay? It's not 100% needed. That's why you see some of these crit upgrades, okay? Because I have that Vigilante mod on the Excellence weapon slot. Take a look at that. Beautiful. Absolutely freaking fantastic. So again, you don't need expensive mods to build powerful weapons in Warframe. All you really need is the right knowledge. Now, with that out of the way, we did the slash build, we did the standard build. We're gonna be doing the Riven build. Now, this one is a loaner from a friend. I forgot who it's from, but thank you so much, mate, for this one. We got critical chance, multi-shot toxin, and minus ammo maximum. Beautiful Riven, and we're looking at Riven disposition of 3 out of 5 because all of these Kuva weapons have the brand new Riven system. Essentially, in the future, I don't know exactly when, but in the future, all of the weapons will be having individual Riven disposition, which should theoretically lead to more weapon diversity. Fingers and toes crossed. So there you go. I got Argon Scope on this one because more crit. I did not include Argon Scope in my standard build because this one is still expensive. I think this one is still worth about 100 plat, but no more than that. You can get it from the Acolyte event. The Acolyte event rolls into town about twice a year. Once a year or twice a year, something like that. Hunter Mumu, of course, and the rest you already know. Level 120 Corrupted Heavy Goons, and let's see what this weapon can do. Now it should be able to do a one-shot. Hold on, let me get rid of the buff. There we go. Take a look. Beautiful bleeds on the target. Absolutely freaking phenomenal. It's not gonna be enough to... almost a one-shot there. It's definitely worth getting a Riven for this absolutely freaking glorious weapon. I honestly believe that it's not that hot when it comes to automatic. Okay, I wouldn't use this weapon in automatic, but for burst it's absolutely freaking glorious. And you know what? In burst it does justice to the Quartakk. Now the Quartakk wasn't exactly everybody's favorite weapon, but I always appreciated how unique it was with the 4 barrels and the 4 bullets at once without like diminishing the status chance, which is definitely something. Look at all that damage. Freaking fantastic. So yes, I do enjoy the weapon and I do recommend it. Again, for a progenitor, consider heat, electricity, and toxin. I think the safest way to go would be for something like Toxin, in case you guys love gas builds. So bear that one in mind. Heat is also good, electricity is flexible. Now, one more thing that we can do, bump up everything with Warframe buffs, and for that we're going to be using the ever so lovely Lady Mirage Prime. And my favorite fashion for her. There you go, guys. You guys been asking about this one. Here you go. These are standard colors. There's nothing too fancy here. This gray you can replace with this standard gray over here, so don't worry about it. The rest, black. Any black you can find. Gold. I'm sorry, the best gold is this one from the Easter pack. Okay, so if you go over here to Classic or Classic Saturated, to replace that gold, you're gonna have to go something like this over here. And the final one, the energy color is this green right here. Standard neon green. As for her buff, sorry for that sidetrack, I just a whole lot of... Anyway, Rifle Amp for 27% extra damage to your primary weapons against Grenier. It's always better to go for Corrosive Projection. But you know what? I'm bored of bashing corrosive projection, bashing everybody over the head with corrosive projection. Listen, it's just an aura. Use it If you want to, don't if you don't. It does make quite an impact when it comes to heavily armored targets, but you don't need to because most content in Warframe can be whistled through anyway. So bear that one in mind. When it comes to Arcanes, we're going to be using Arcane Avenger R3 Double Stack. This is a 30% critical chance boost bonus additive after, so it simply stacks on top of what you already have. So let's say I have a weapon with 0% crit chance. This one procs, it goes to 30% crit chance, which is pretty huge. It doesn't add base crit chance, but it does ignore the base critical chance of the weapon. They do double stack, link in the cards right now for a full tutorial on arcanes and how they can be used. For a secondary arcane, you got a couple of options. You can go for raw damage with arcane rage. Actually, yeah, let's go like this. One like this, one like this. This one will give you 120% damage to primary weapons for 16 seconds. It's a 10% chance on headshot, and of course the usual plus arcane revive. Now, I've seen a lot of questions like, what's Arcane Revive, Lazar? Arcane Revive, basically when you die and you can get yourself up, that's the Arcane Revive. It's easy mode. This is a primary weapon, so what we can be doing is getting over here any sentinel you want, it doesn't matter which, and use the weapon to buff up our primary's weapon with vigilante armaments, offense, fervor, basically any vigilante mods. Even if your sentinel dies, you're still gonna be getting that 20% chance to enhance critical hits to primary weapons. It doesn't mean crit chance. I see this confusion all the time. It doesn't mean crit chance. It means chance to enhance critical hits. It doesn't work the exact same way. It applies differently. So bear that one in mind. How about level 145? Corrupted Heavy Goons, huh? Okay. Activate Mirage's free ability for a fantastic damage increase as well as her ever so lovely clones. Now that said, the weapon was doing fantastically well before, and now we got guaranteed one-shots without any sort of issue at all. Now, of course, the weapon could proc slash, but it's a one-shot. It doesn't need to proc anything. You're gonna need higher level targets than this. Now, of course, this is with the buffs of Mirage Prime, and she has that beautiful, beautiful gift of making every single weapon look extremely powerful. Now, don't get me wrong, the Kuva Quartakk is a very powerful gun, but I'm not really sure it needed the automatic mode. Honestly, it's a bit cumbersome, just like on the quads, to actually get it going, especially if you're used to actually aiming down sights. If you just want to shoot from the hip, then I guess it's good enough. The base stat increase was good enough for the Kuva Quartakk. It didn't really need this automatic fire mode, which from my point of view isn't really all that efficient. But hey, beggars can't be choosy, and at the end of the day, you might like that automatic fire mode. As always, my name has been Lazar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you got any sorts of feedback for me, I would love to read it in the comment section down below. Now, speaking of the comment section down below, if you guys got any sorts of suggestions regarding content, this weapon build or that weapon versus, or how about this or that, I would be more than happy to read it. You can also find me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. And if you love the content, consider supporting us via Patreon. Link in the description down below. But until next time, my friends, bye-bye.